So am I gonna miss the second half of the meeting because I have to leave early?
Present the second half first and
Second half is the only part you'd want to be part of.
then.
What's that?
Going over consumables, buy downs.
Oh.
Your insight probably would have been.
Oh, I'm
Great.
sure. I actually gave Brian my insight of what I just did with my 2-1 buy down, marketing it on my listing. So I gave him the printout of it. So because I knew he was doing that. Yeah.
Awesome. Maybe we can share it out. Hey, Brian Todd.
But the one thing is I did one for both the agents and one for the listing and for the public, because I had done one first and I posted it to the agents, and then I said I want to post that because the agents don't even look at stuff. So I want to post it to the public. I have to remember you can't put in any advertising names, phone number, or anything. All my information off of it and say, contact your agent. I think I put contact your agent or listing agent for more information. But because I don't think agents take the time to look at all the supplements all the time unless there's a real interest, where the public will. And I've already had more showings because of it the last week, so. So I have it posted 2 different ways. I have 2 different write-ups. So if you go to, take a look at the listing.
Or no?
Try to summarize it.
Hello, sirs. Good to you? I'm doing good.
Welcome back to.
Grandson's in their school. Oh, yeah.
Going on.
It's one for me too. Hi, Kelly.
I didn't know if you heard me or.
Welcome back. Thank you. I'm actually very ready to do that.
And then when Misty was showing, then that I did not, I'm not saying that. Yeah. Oh, that is quite a.
It's like to keep you guys up to date.
Well, it is a minute.
It is.
Oh, I always think. That's pretty overwhelming.
Second guessing.
Yeah, the good thing is, so their defense is fairly suspect. I mean, might be playing nice. It's rough. You gotta have it down so you never know.
Yeah.
Thunderstruck.
Second guessing.
All right, you ready? Hey, look at that, Melissa Johnson, on time? On time. Like literally on time, like a minute to spare.
Rarely.
But we are going to get this going because we, as usual, have a lot to talk about, and we value your time. And we value those who show up on time. Those are super important things. Today's focus is on mortgages, so I'm excited to have everybody here, obviously in a changing market. We need to be as educated as we can be to help our customers and clients as best we can, and mortgages, a lot of offers out there, a lot of changes. We want to be able to talk to you about that and bring you that information. So with that in mind, we do want to start out with bucket fills. Yay, exciting bucket fills. Gunnar, if you wouldn't mind reading that fantastic first one, and I'll have my friend Matt read this one.
Grace is an angel so helpful.
Grace, up at the front, an actual angel. I'm gonna be honest with you, that's a promotion. At least around here, that's a whole new category of fun. And Matt, what do you got for me today?
I feel left out on this one, but Victoria and her sweet curly fries. You've never given me any curly fries.
Wow, she's giving curly fries, but not giving them to everybody, so you know where you are on her list. Maybe if you got promoted to angel,
Yeah, well,
you get a curly fry,
put it in
buddy.
half.
Only
But-
one really friend.
I do want to start out, and also the other thing that's going on this week that's a huge impact on our business, and in the long run, a huge impact on your business, more importantly, is Bold. And that's going to be launching on Thursday with our first step to Bold, and that's going to be a great thing. And while we're on the bucket fills, I want to take a moment, and she's going to get really mad about this, which is part of the fun for me. But I want to recognize somebody who's put in a tremendous amount of effort, just round the clock, constant effort. Victoria, thank you. Take a moment. This is your moment.
This is for you. I did this for you. I did not do it for the other market centers, well.
Some of it you had to.
Yes,
But you did
this
a
is
lot
for
for
you.
us.
Tremendous amounts of planning, and the good news is for all of y'all, you'll never have to worry about it. It just all happens. It's like magic, but the truth is, it wasn't a lot of magic. It was actual hard work combined with magic. And the hard work all came from Victoria. So thank you very much, Victoria. Huge shout out to you for that, and a real bucket fill. So Spirit Award, we now have a new record holder for person who held the Spirit Award the longest. It's been a while since we've actually given out a Spirit Award due to traveling as a caterer and other things and shortening meetings, but Brian Sunder is going to talk about this time's Spirit Award winner.
So, I've had this for a long time.
Sunderstruck, we're all Sunderstruck.
This actually screws up, I've had it so long, I've been on Canada on vacation, we drank out of it. Mexico, we drank out of it. Chaska, we drank out of it. We've been everywhere with this thing. And I didn't get to thank Chris who gave it to me because I was on vacation. Thank you. So this award winner, might be a second-time award winner. She had just recently closed a deal. It's amazing what she did for this customer. She's probably up on the roof, but she's meeting roofing contractors. That deal fell through because of the roof. New deal. Up on the roof again, I think, because of issues and just bending over backwards, doing whatever it takes. And it wasn't that big of a deal, but this customer is so beholden to Megan Oren for the work he did.
You did
It's gonna be a customer. And that's what we're looking for.
You've been
Sunderstruck. So, Spirit Award, thank you, Brian. He's had plenty of time to practice that speech, which is awesome. That's part of the job. Now, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about Hurricane Ian, and I know that many of you have seen the video that Jamie and I did. But I want to touch on it again. I want to start out by thanking everyone who's already brought a donation. And one of the challenges we have as people is when things disappear, they disappear from our mind. And Hurricane Ian came, blew down an entire part of the state, and it left. It was on the news for a little while, and then it left our minds too. But I'll tell you, there's a whole group of people who don't get to have it leave. They wake up every day with the reality of it around them. There are people who don't have, look, there are people down there who have plenty of money. We all know Sanibel Island, we know, we've heard all the great places about those things, and some of you probably live there. I'm not in that category. But the point is, for a lot of people down there, this is their real life now. Every day they wake up with a destroyed home. A home that they may not get their insurance money for months. That FEMA might not be present for them for months. That they can't afford to stay in a hotel every day for months. That a family member might not be convenient to live in. So some people right now are living in homes that should be condemned, trying to make sense of their life and their everyday, day-to-day. And I want you to think about those people when you're bringing your donations in over the next several days, because those are the people we're there to help. KW Cares does a great job and is going to help out our Keller Williams agents. We're going to help Keller Williams as a whole, as a company, is going to help out our market centers. But there are real people down there who are really hurting. And just the briefest amount of something to recognize the people out there, you know, that they're on their own and that we can help them. Take that moment, figure out a way to help out. Two things here. There's the website. If you're not sure what to bring, we're collecting it down the hall. There's so many things that we can do to help these folks out, whether it's through cash donation, with checks, what have you, bringing in physical items, but we're sending a truck down there. And we want to be a huge part of that. And I know that you are also looking at your own pocketbooks right now in this tough time and figuring out, how do I make things balance? And that's real and it's true. And I know that you've got to balance that out, but I also know your hearts. And I know how you can share those hearts with others. And for those who've done so already, thank you so much. And for those who will do so in the near future, thank you as well. And Olivia just has a couple of words.
Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to Sherry at the front desk. She personally donated $100 to the first 2 people that made donations. So I just think that is just so amazing of her. I did get an update that the truck will be here on Monday afternoon. I don't know what time. Depending on how much stuff we have, we would love some strong muscles to help load the truck. It will be departing on Tuesday morning, so we'll have to have it done Monday. So as we get more details, I'll get that out. They're also saying that we don't need any more generators because the generators' time is kind of already come and gone. So anything, IKEA furniture, they're asking for appliances. And if I get another updated list, I'll get that info out. But as of right now, we need volunteers to help pack everything up. And yes, thank you for that message.
I just want to throw out there that our very own Kristen Rezak, her parents live in that area. She's actually, I was Snapchatting with her this morning. She's on a flight right now from Fort Myers back here. But as you can imagine, their electric post outside their house was taken out. I think it fed like 4 families or whatever. And then it'll be a couple weeks for that. She said it's hotter than hell down there right now. And so, I think it sucks to have it happen when it happens to you, but considering it's happening to everybody, it's like, how long does it take for insurance to get out there? How long does it take for contractors to get out there and stuff like that? So anyway, just throwing that out that, one of our own is, affected.
And also, I encourage you guys to share this on your personal pages. We have it on our page, back, the personal pages for the business. Share this with your colleagues, obviously, because one of the things that's hard, I think, about something like this, it's kind of like when you lose a loved one, you get all the support in the world, right? Then a couple weeks later, a month later, you go to pick up that phone and mom's not there anymore, right? That's when you really need more support. Well, the tides came in and the tides left, and they're left with 10 feet of garbage in their yards. So let's be another wave of help for them. That'd be awesome. I called an agent yesterday, and yeah, that's what he was doing. Down there working on his parents' house, they just said that they're gonna demolish it. So, something, there's.
All right, my good friend Jamie, tell us about our new agents.
Well, maybe, hey, if you're out there, Brandy, welcome.
It's this one, sir.
Is it that one?
Hey, what's up? Camera 2, camera 1, camera 2.
Usually when I walk into places, I make sure I know right where they're at. But Brandy, welcome. Brandy is with Amber Siever. her new admin, so let's give her a round of applause. Michelle Burchell. Is it what? Leisure team. Leisure team, thank you, I almost said it wrong, but a leisure team, so let's welcome Michelle. Thank you.
Hey, all we need to do is have a meeting down there and all of a sudden there's new people. Kidding, obviously.
Well, we have one capper. So let's give a round of applause for Carol Lambert. She will be getting a cooler. There it is.
I just got shipping boxes so I can actually ship off the ones that
Awesome. And to remind people, we restarted this program in August. So if you capped, pardon me, if you capped this year prior to September, you'll still get one as we move forward. So it's kind of like a new year, September on, as far as that we're recognizing everyone with gifts. If you haven't heard much about Bold, it's coming tomorrow. And, you know, like we talked about with Victoria and all the effort that she's put in and all the care that she's put in, you know, it just says a lot. And as leadership, we know it might be a little annoying. We do a little bit much, come off a little bit strong on this stuff. However, we know it's going to move the needle. And we want our agents to be further down the path when, if that storm hits, right? We want to fortify our businesses for if it is a hurricane that hits us. We don't exactly know. Gary came out in Inman today talking about, you know, it doesn't look too good in general. However, this is when KW thrives. So give yourselves a round of applause for being here. So you'll get to meet Darren tomorrow. And this is a reminder, this is the address, Savage. So Savage place we're going to. The venue did change from original, so we just want to make sure that people know that this is where we're going.
Jamie, that runs till 2:30. Is there gonna be food there?
I wasn't gonna share because I kind of wanted it for myself, but yeah, now that the cat's out of the bag, there's gonna be food.
And
to eat as well.
So raise your hand if, do you like food? Okay, not too many people.
No, seems unnecessary now.
It's already ordered, it's on its way.
What are we gonna do? All right.
Wow, hey, person we all know and love,
Who's
the
back?
broker with the most is.
Well, as you all know, when I took this job, I was pretty excited. Did I know I'd be dealing so much with the office policies? No, but it is a role that I've grown to love. So just a reminder where you can find our office policies. Would you touch the next slide? You, of course, can stop into my office anytime. It would be my distinct pleasure to open this red binder and go over the office policies with you. But if there's a question, maybe it's after hours, maybe you're out of state or outstate, you can always go to our very handy dandy dashboard, and it brings you right here to all of our office policies. So I've had some questions recently about personal transactions and whatnot. Our ALC has also been working really hard on updating all of the policies that may have been a little outdated. We've also added a couple new ones. So I'd like to bring to your attention today two very important policies that are dated back in September when ALC approved them. One is the annual brokerage review of team and name. So it is my responsibility as broker in properly managing this brokerage with Department of Commerce compliance that I approve all team and group names. Now, I think many of you have brought your team names forward. They've been kind of casually approved by the Market Center. I'm going to be reviewing those on an annual basis, just in case there's any slight tweaks or slight changes to it. So the responsibility really falls on me, but I want you to know why I'm coming to you to review your team name and the importance of it. And that is because it was made as a suggestion by Greg Hartos. It was strongly considered and vetted by your ALC, and then it was approved. So it's a new policy. The other policy, because we've had some vagueness to it, is your ability as an individual realtor to have ad edit privileges and they're on the North Star MLS. And there's a few different stages and steps to that, but to have full ad edit privileges, the ALC has put together a policy that has a variety of criteria. And I'm going to be going through and giving written authorization to those of you who already have it, possibly making some modifications to some people who maybe aren't using it but have it anyway. And the general criteria is this. So you can have full ad edit privileges if you are an experienced agent who has listed at least 20 homes during their Minnesota real estate career. And then as a privilege to your staff, they would be able to have the ability to do that as well. You have to understand that if you add your own listing onto the North Star MLS, that the opportunity must still be created in Command first, that you must still conform to our brokerage minimum of 2.7% co-op commission, that you also are fully educated on all the North Star MLS rules, which can be found on that North Star MLS landing page. You understand that any of the fines that you may incur would be the responsibility of you as the agent. And you also understand that at any point at my discretion as the broker, if you do not comply with the MLS rules, that I could revoke your privileges. So just know these two things are going to be taking place over the winter. I'm going to be cleaning them up. I may be approaching you about them. Any questions? Any additions? All right, policies are fun.
That's awesome. Well, before we get into it, you just heard her, Melissa, first of all, thank you. You heard her reference the ALC. That's a lot of work that they're putting in. So I say, let's give the ALC a round of applause. All right, so as we move on to the next stage, maybe you all have been wondering what this is. We found this artifact. It dates back from the last shift. And it contains materials that I hope can open that help agents during that time. All sorts of interesting new things like 2-1 buy downs, assumptions. So we're dusting off, for effect, some old tools to make sure your toolbox is full, so that you're fully armed with whatever your clients need, put you on top for them and with them. So that being said, what we have is we've invited Brian Sunder and Scotty Ringley to be on the panel. And how this will work is we're going to bring up some of the different opportunities that mortgage offers. Brian is going to share them. Scotty is going to put them in realtor language and translate for you. Maybe.
Depends on what he says.
Good point. But then we do want to hear from agents who have experience using these opportunities to advance the ball for your clients too. So that being said,
Let's get a hand.
welcome. Let's get a hand.
Thanks. Welcome in.
Who's that?
He's giving us legitimative.
Oh, individual. Okay. Oh, now Scotty.
No, it's just a Jason thing. He doesn't-
So, I wanted to start with talking about a 2-1 buy down. A lot of questions about that, and I thought, well, I've got a slide here, and you do have it in front of you, so you can kind of follow along. Use again my digital pointer.
Old school.
And so it's kind of has some seller strategies and some buyer strategies, or the buyer advantage. All right, and so what we're doing here, just as an example, 400 grand purchase price. The home, for the seller, listed at 410, and maybe the seller wants to get 410 out of it. Well, what they would do is offer 10 grand of seller paid closing costs. All right, and so out of that 410, they're down to the 400 that they wanted. All right, so what are we doing here? We're gonna as a seller, they're, let's say advertising or saying, hey, we'll do a 2-1 buy down. I'm gonna explain what the 2-1 buy down is. All right, so out of that 10 grand, the seller has to pay all the funds for a buy down. All right, so the seller has to pay closing costs to be able to do a 2-1 buy down. Here's what's going on with the 2-1 buy down, and I don't know if we can see down here. So let's say the normal rate, 6.75. Well, the first year, 2-1 buy down, 2% drop in the rate, so we're at 4.75. All right, the normal payment would be $2,100. Okay, but that first year, because the rate is 2% less, it's only 17. That's $416 less each payment. All right, so all we're doing is multiplying that 416 by the 12 months that they're making that payment, which is just shy of 5 grand. Let's call it a subsidy. That 5 grand is going into a bucket. Okay. Next year, it bumps up to 5.75. Well, now the payment is $1,900. The savings per month compared to that original payment, the normal payment, is $213. Times 12 months that they're going to be making that payment is $2,500. All we're doing is adding the 5 grand and the 2,500 equals $7,556 is what the seller needs to pay towards the buy down to get it to work. Now, what happens with that money? That money literally sits in an escrow bucket at the servicer. You have to be able to service your loans to be able to do this. New American does, but a lot of companies do, but there's a lot that don't. They can't do the buy down in that situation. So what happens is that $7,500 sits in the bucket. And that first payment, they send in $1,700 instead of the $2,100. Literally out of the bucket, $416 comes out of that bucket, matches the lower payment to match the real payment. All right. So it is basically taking what the seller's paying, at least $7,556 in this scenario. And each month, that first year, each month, they're pulling $416 out of that bucket. The next year, they're pulling $213 out of that bucket until after 2 years, that money's gone. All right, so let's say you negotiated 10 grand seller pays, well, 7,500 of it is going into a bucket. And there's still 2,400 that can go towards closing costs. All right, so the seller strategy is, hey, we can lower your payment for the first year a lot, second year some, and if you're worried about can you buy this house or not, rates are going up, here's what we can do for you. All right. On the buyer side, I've got a truck is going to be gone in a year and a half. Get rid of that $400 payment, work on other debts, and so that can make sense. All right, but the money isn't. It's not magically lowering the rate or anything. It's just going into a bucket and it's matching the payment. Okay, does that make sense?
We call it 2-1 because it's 2 years and then 1 year.
Correct. Yep. It's for for the first year it's this. For the second year it's that. So it's bought down for a lot the first year and some the second year.
I just was gonna share, I just tried this week from a marketing standpoint on a listing that I've had on the market for 30 days. And the seller, we've been discussing, reducing the price, that kind of thing. And I said, let's try this first because it's cheaper. Ours isn't quite that high because it's only $259,000 house, but rather than reduce the price $10,000, let's try this. And I will say we have increased the number of showings this last week. It's still down. I mean, showings are down, period, but it did increase the number of showings. So I'm trying that avenue first before we do a price reduction.
And you and I had talked about how you market that then in your North Star MLS listing. Did you put it in the financial comments or the agent comments?
No, in the financial comments, I said, see supplement about a 2-1 buy down. And I first had one, kind of a scenario, doing the scenario for the listing agent. and I was gonna put that on for the buyers, because I'm finding a lot of listing agents or selling agents don't read all the information. And so I didn't have as much luck until I put it in on the buyer supplement. And what I did is I have to take out, you cannot advertise your name or phone number or anything in a buyer supplement. So you have to say, see your listing or see your agent for more information. And so, so I've had more response since I had it in. Buyers look at everything, buyers agents don't.
You said C supplement for,
I just, what's that?
you said C supplement for
A 2-1 buy down and lowering interest rates or something, lower first 2 years of interest rates.
And I just want to, I'll get to everybody, but I wanted it is market. Okay?
Yes, let's do this. Yep, we'll answer some questions here in a moment. I want to hear from the ringleader.
Yes.
well, that's gonna be my main point, is that this is still gonna be cheaper than your first price reduction, so we're in a different market than we were. You can't just stick a sign in the yard. Those have been around long enough to know that we didn't have to fight to sell our listings, and we're there again. So I think having this as a marketing tool on the listing side with acceptable offer, seller willing to pay towards a 2-1 buy down. And not towards, because it does, the full amount has to come from the seller. But one of the things I think we're gonna start seeing is everyone thinks 3% is kind of the standard closing cost. I don't think anymore. This is where people are probably gonna start asking for 5 or 6% seller pay closing costs, as long as the value's there. Because it ends up being about 2%, is that what you said?
Right, depending on.
Yeah, so that still gives you another 3% to cover your loan origination fees and all those other costs that we normally ask the sellers to pay. So from a listing standpoint, from marketing, I think this is gonna be key.
Scotty, do you mind sharing quick too? If we on the spot, tell them to buzz off. But if this is your seller, how would you explain this to them?
Like script wise?
Yeah, it's basic, how would you say, let's not do it, I want you to give the buyer a ton of dough, okay, so we can sell this house. That's probably not how you'd say it.
Well, I wish
How would you
Colin
say
was here to give it. He's really the best for scripts, but there you are, you could do it. But mine would be basically Mr. and Mrs. Seller. You know that we're in a different market. We've talked about this ad nauseum, a different market than we were 4 months ago, 6 months ago, 2 years ago. Now, I think it's important for us to have as many tools in our tool belt as possible. And one of the things I think we should do is, because rates are so high, we have eliminated a lot of the pool, the buyer pool that we normally would have. So one of the marketing techniques that we could do is offer closing costs, a seller paid concession towards a market 2-1 buy downs, where basically the difference in that payment, because everyone's upset that, wow, I wish I would have bought at 5%, now we're at 7%. Well, guess what? For a year, you could have 5%. For another year, you could have 6%. But you have to qualify at 7.
At the top.
I don't think we've said that yet, have we?
Correct, no, yeah.
So they've got to financially be able to qualify for 7%, but, and I'm skipping back and forth between buyer and seller here.
Let it flow, girl.
Yeah, but I think being able to offer a seller concession upfront and giving us another tool to market your listing is only gonna help us in the end. And then I can go through the buyer's
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Question?
Can you buy down the rate, then kick in the 2-1 buy down, so like buy it down? Yes. Half a point and then. Yes, I mean, and that will almost always happens. It's never a point where 7% is exactly free. Right. 7% might cost 200, 7%, or if we want, they could buy it down to 6.5 today and pay $4,000 to get it, or whatever that number is.
Yep.
And then do the 2-1 buy down from there. Correct. Yes, and the buyer can pay for that.
Yep.
Yes.
Chase would like to know, can you get more than 3% seller pays on a conventional loan?
Okay, so I was gonna, yes, and yes, you can, but you have to put more down payment. So if you're putting 10 or 20% down, you can get 6% on conventional. All right, but let's call it the normal 3 and 5% down. That's where you're talking, the max is 3%. An FHA right out of the chutes, you can get 6%.
And I think you'll have to evaluate at price point. I mean, the people who are buying $700,000-$800,000 homes are probably putting 20% down. The ones buying a starter home of $250,000-$300,000 probably are not putting 20% down, so just be sure when you're presenting this to your sellers, you're at the right price point when you're presenting it.
Yeah, bang for your buck for seller or buyers. 2-1 is buying points down from 7 to 6.5. Where's the value, right? So I'm saying $1 per dollar right here, you're just lessening the blow. Year 1 and 2, is that a correct assumption? The way I perceive this, right? It's dollar for dollar. If I put $4,000 in to get a half a point reduction, and I'm gonna live in that home more than X years, for us as listing and or buyer's agents, what do we do to have it? What's the most bang for your buck when we're trying to help our clients? Does that make sense?
But buy down versus 2-1,
Yeah.
I'm against buy downs.
Yeah, so I was gonna mention marketing. You went a different way. I want to go over what I was gonna talk about, but, and this will maybe fit in. So if the seller is gonna pay 10 grand, all right? Well, $7,500 of it goes into a bucket. Doesn't go to the buyer, doesn't go to anybody, it goes in a bucket, it matches the payment. $2,400 of it, hey, the buyer can use to lessen the cash they bring in. Okay? Well, what if that means the buyer's probably bringing in that $7,500 more. Let's say they're gonna be bringing in 10 grand of closing costs, escrows, first year homeowners insurance, they're gonna be bringing in 10 grand for sure. Well, they got the sellers to pay 10 grand, but 7,500 of it is going to a bucket. So they're gonna have to the buyer's gotta come up with that $7,500 and bring it to closing, along with anything else. But they do get a little break here, the seller is kicking in a little bit. But just to get a grasp on that, why wouldn't the buyer take the full 10 grand, keep $7,500 at home, and pull out $400 out of each payment? It's the same.
It's just
Okay.
whether your buyers have the discipline to really.
Correct, I mean, it all goes to carpet and the whole thing is off, obviously, but it's the same. So the buyer in this scenario would have to come in with more money, because that $7,500 is going into a bucket to lower the payment.
And then obviously at some point, should the rates come back down to less than that, then they can refinance and get that.
Correct, and then they have that, let's say, 2 months from now, rates drop down to 3 and they refinance.
From your mouth to God's ears.
So now they got the 7 grand yet is theirs. Yes.
But so, I'm not sure the question was actually answered. Which do you think is better?
So in long term, lower rate.
Oh, right, and
Not a
long term
temporary
could
buyout.
be 3 years, could be 5, could be 10, we don't know, we have to run the math. But we can believe this is a long-term home and we're a net only person, which let's be honest, so very few of us are. But if we are truly net, we go, okay, I wanna go, I think I heard you say, let's say 4,000 on a half a point. Let's go, whatever the math is on 10,000, if that's what we're getting, which could be a point and a quarter if my math is correct. And now after 5 years, I'm making money, if the rates don't come down, so we're gambling. Does that make sense?
And I think hedging the risk, like, you'd have to ask them, what's your plan? Do you think you're gonna be here 10 years? Sometimes clients will say, should I buy down the rate? I'm gonna be here for a while. No, because rates are gonna go down. They'll be down before 10 years. I mean, I know none of us have a crystal ball, but so far, none of the experts have said anything, but rates will come back down, whether it's in 23 or 24, right? Everyone's expecting that it'll normalize. So I don't see a benefit to buying down a rate. I would go ahead and do this so that your payment is lower. And then if it goes lower than your 5, let's say it's 7% now and you get 5% the first year, if you can refi, if rates go back down to 4, yeah. So you have control. You have the power as the buyer.
If rates are going down, this may be the better option.
Yeah.
If you don't believe that, maybe the other.
Well, worst case, they're gonna be locked in at today's rates of 7 or whatever. So, I mean, if rates end up going at 9, 10 and don't come down for 4 years, you got the benefit of a 5% for a year, the benefit of a 6% for a year, and then you're locked in at 7.
You would lose the benefit if you go the other route, though, correct? Because if you refinance, it's all bets are off. You just lost 10 grand on a point reduction.
Correct.
You do lose it if you don't use it. Okay.
Correct. So as agents, you can have that conversation, and I'm gonna play a video from Barry Habib. He's on the cable news, he's a mortgage guy, and really a sharp guy, and he'll be talking about rates and gets into the weeds a little bit, but I'm gonna say a month ago, he was talking about rates are gonna keep going up at the end of the year, maybe into the next year, flatten out, and next fall, it might be time to refi because it's gonna be that much better. And now it's maybe the end of the year, flatten out and start dropping even by summer. And it seems like that's the chatter, but, you know, I'll have conversations with customers and I'll say, you know, plan on that being your payment. If rates drop, that's gravy, but you need to plan on this being your payment. As agents, I don't know that you need to say that. Hey, everybody's talking about rates dropping later, this might be temporary. I feel like that's legit to say, or don't, I don't know if that's legit for you to say, to talk to customers that way.
You take the risk either way, it could be 9% a month. I mean, like, you know what I mean, it's a risk either way, there's no crystal ball, but I think history-wise, eventually it's gonna come back down, right?
I think we're at 16 to 20 years high right now.
Yep.
So most of your customers have no idea what you're even talking about as far as where rates are right now.
Well, and I think was it last meeting where we had the graphic? Or was that where we had the graphic of what rates have been basically for the last 30 years or whatever? I mean, our job is to educate, that's it. They have to make the decision. We could tell them, you know, rates could get better and this could be a waste. Or rates could get way worse and you're gonna be so glad. I raise my kids and I teach my clients the same thing. Which way would you regret most or the least? And make your decision that way. That's all you can do.
Lisa.
She asked my questions, thank you.
Oh, that was nice of you. Lisa.
All right, I have two sharp folks, Tommy Callahan, my favorite real estate agent. He sees this 2 for 1. What happens? I mean, let's say we close the deal, either agree that their client agrees to do this. What happens? Who's involved in making the 10,000? Who sets up the bucket? What do I have to do as an agent after seeing this on paper? You know what I mean? You get what I'm asking
You
here?
start by writing in your purchase agreement that you'd like the seller to pay $10,000. Do you mean starting way back then?
Yes.
Yeah, the offer would say, and do you even have to specify? You don't really. You could just say 10,000 of seller paid closing costs. Then the buyer has the power to choose, do they want to do this or do they want to use it towards all the other costs and maybe buy down rate or whatever. And then from there, it matters what lender you work with because I can't see a scenario where you would work more closely with your lender than something like this. And so you're the one that has the bucket in New American Funding that with every payment. So you want to talk about that? It's just
Yes.
seamless from your side.
Yeah, so you're right. If you're you can't, let's say you negotiated this exact purchase price and everything, and you got 75.55. You'd have to renegotiate. The seller has to pay it. Okay, so we would, and that number changes if the purchase price is $399. That number is going to change. We can do the calculation. Okay, this is, and you know, you're probably going to get 3 or 2.5. Well, we only need 2.1 on this deal. Well, you're not going to negotiate 2.14 to get the exact number. I take that back, you could. But probably just going to say 2.2. We need to make sure we get it done. If this is what the buyer wants to do, and then we're going to have that conversation, here's what we could do. Again, you know, that would actually work out good because we'll still have that car payment for another year and a half. So we would have those conversations to figure out, is this something they want to do? But then you negotiated the 10 grand into the deal, we're ready to lock, and it's like, you know what? My mom just paid off my car. I don't need to do that. Let's use that 10 grand so I can bring in less. All right, so we just have 10 grand to use to either buy down the rate Chad was talking about, or that's just gonna be less cash out of my pocket that I have to bring into the closing table.
It's really the only thing you need up front before writing the offer is to make sure that you're at least requesting enough to cover that buy down. After that, you can use it.
Lisa Brainer.
Okay, 2
Yes.
questions. So the buy down subsidy, so that's not actually like a bucket that the title company holds, it's actually given credit to the seller, to the buyer at closing, and it's up to them to either save for it or you buy carpet or whatever.
No. So that money is sitting at the mortgage servicer.
Okay, so they get that, okay, so then you have to tell the title company you're doing this.
No. So the title, it's, you know, like say a bucket, it's not escrow, it's money set aside that the servicer holds. Okay, and then, you know, there's millions of dollars in this bank account. Let's say they just set up a bank account for buy downs. Right? There's $1 million in there, and then when our customer makes the payment, it's only $1,700. They take $416 out of that. I mean, they're not just grabbing and doing it, but that's what's happening. They're taking money out of the $7,500 that's being held.
Okay.
The escrow thing is confusing, but it has to stay at the servicer.
And then my other question was, in that scenario, sellers, this price, they want 400,000 as your list price, but they post it at 410, so they can still net. It's not costing the seller anything in that scenario, because reality, buyers are financing their $10,000 closing costs because they went 10 grand over. Correct.
That was the conversation I was having with him earlier. We might be back at the negotiating table 2 weeks before closing if it comes in at 400.
Yeah.
Not 410. Because what's the first thing to go? Those are the closing costs.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and since we're chasing a market down, like I've had 2 appraisal issues just in the last 3 weeks. I don't know if anybody else is. But sellers definitely are still thinking they can charge May 2022 list prices, and they can't. Right, Alyssa?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that, I mean, you're basically telling your sellers, hey, let's plan on paying. We're gonna plan on paying something, and this is maybe a way we can get a buyer in, you know, as a marketing, to say, hey, your payment's gonna be this much lower first year.
Have your hand up for a while.
So the seller can write off the seller concessions, correct? Rather than
It's
making
regular old seller pays.
$10,000 price reduction, they can write off the seller concessions?
You mean on your
Tax
taxes?
advisor?
Yeah, I no longer a CPA, won't touch that. It's definitely not on camera, being recorded.
Servicer are they earning interest on the bucket?
There's probably a reason why they're offering this incentive, and
Yeah, I don't know, I don't think that's a thing, but, I would say probably not, that's probably 5 cents a month or whatever it is, it's probably going into that bucket, but I'm not sure. These days, I can't believe they would be allowed to do that.
If in the marketing, you're putting it in that, then you have to have a conversation with the agent on that side, that they have to make contact with you to set up this deal with the buyer.
they would need to use a lender that services their loans and has the same program available, because so many of the lenders that we work with sell them straight to Fannie and Freddie, and they don't service them, so that's not an option for them. But it would be a way for you to introduce your trusted lender that has this program.
Yeah, so it's,
So it's a conversation to say, are you aware that this program may be out there with your lender, but if it's not, I have one that would do it for you. Is that the conversation?
Or just to find one. Right, I mean, you have to talk to them anyways.
Yeah.
So.
Are there, I'm sorry, I didn't raise my hand. Are there lenders that aren't doing this? Like, for example, Wells Fargo or US Bank?
Well, they don't, yeah, ones that don't serve.
well, they service their own, so they can do it.
Okay.
I don't quite honestly know if they're, you know, Wells Fargo basically isn't doing FHA loans anymore. But, so I don't know about the 2-1 buy now, but, it's a way, I feel like it's more of a seller thing than a buyer thing, a way to market the property. And if, again, there are scenarios where it can work out for a buyer too, especially say.
Well, your example of the car payment is huge. That was kind of the one that I thought of. If you know you only have 18 months left on your car payment, that's gonna free up $600-700 a month. Something like this is
Right.
great, because when it goes to the full 7%, you don't have that car payment anymore, and you're not net, you're still the same amount.
Right, and you know, they're qualifying on the high payment, the the regular payment. And if somebody has 780, 800 scores, I'm usually telling them, you qualify for $3,000 a month. Oh, no, I don't, 2,200 is all I want to do. And if I got somebody with a 660 score, I'm telling them 1,500 and they want 2,500. Well, we gotta fix it. So that's usually what happens. And so, I'll tell them, hey, you qualify for more than this, which is a good thing. That's a good problem to have. And so, but even then, I mean, they do have to qualify for the top payment, but then that car payment scenario comes in, it's like, that could work. Plus, if rates drop, then I can refinance. I've got that money sitting there.
Well,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Dwayne had his hand up
Oh,
for a
Kelly
long
and
time.
Kelly, I was looking at this.
Dwayne, you still got your question?
Yeah, sure. Can you use it with first-time homebuyers program? My first question. The second question is, how do we know what the buy-down subsidy is, like per price range?
Yep, so, Fannie, Freddie, FHA, VA. We service them. US Bank services the Minnesota Housing and the other down payment systems, most of them, countrywide. So it's not available on those.
You can't use it with at least Minnesota Housing.
Correct.
Can't use it for that. Okay. How do you know what the subsidy amount is?
Yep, so we would do the math. Okay, let's say it's gonna be a 400 grand purchase price. We do the math, we can figure out exactly what it is. And let's say we're negotiating on that, that's why you really don't want to do the exact amount, because you're negotiating a week ago and our rates are 0.25% higher. That number changes slightly.
But there's
So
not a factor that we can kind of use when we're sitting.
there's really not a factor. If you put 20% down versus 10% down, those numbers change. But we played around with some scenarios, 2 to 2.2, it's in there.
Let's move on to the next segment after the one more question because I cut you off so rudely.
Okay. So just kind of as a general clarification, basically, if you have a seller, if you have a listing, if you can get them to agree to say, $10,000 closing costs, and you can advertise that, the buyer can do whatever they want with those closing costs. So all we're really telling the seller is this is a way that, and then obviously you can tell the buyer's agent about this program to benefit their buyer so that hopefully they want to buy your seller's house. But really all you're getting the seller to do is to agree to pay some closing costs, correct? They don't.
Well, and when you market it, understand you just show your hand.
Right.
Because a buyer now knows you're willing to give 10 grand.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to use this program,
yeah,
they know you're willing to give 10 grand.
That's what Krista had
Seller
said.
has to understand they're offering 10 grand and the buyer can go do whatever they want with it. This might be the smartest option, but
You couldn't say something like up to $10,000 toward this program? You couldn't state it that way?
You could, unless the price point would make it be more than, like in this case, it's 75.56. If you're only offering 10, it ends up being 10,020. You can't use this seller states for that reason.
So let's say it was 300. Well, now the savings is only 290 times 12. So now it's only 3,500. And so that total number ends up being 6,200.
That would still be within that.
But it's probably still gonna be 2.whatever% of the 300, somewhere in there, yes. But I'm not sure about how you would advertise that. I know Krista had mentioned, and she showed me this earlier, she's putting it in the agent comments. I don't think you can put it out there where buyers can see it, is what she said.
Melissa, is that true? Because as long as you offer it, just like if you offer like a $2,000 selling bonus to the buyer's agent, as long as it's offered to everyone with no stipulations, you can put that in the MLS public comments, right?
Where's Krista go?
Kelly, did you still have a question?
Krista and I were calling the North Star MLS in regards to that, but yes, I do believe you can.
Because you can, like, I got in trouble, so I learned it. Offering a $2,000 buyer agent bonus if offer accepted before whatever. And I had it worded wrong to begin with, and then I changed it and used their wording, and they said as long as it is publicly open as an offer to everyone. So we need to look into that.
And I do think this is a really good application for the financial remarks, which really no one ever uses that third section in the comments of their MLS listing. I think that's probably the best spot for it.
Kelly's had her hand up for a really long time.
Awesome. One more, then we'll adjust to the adjustable rate.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Just for clarification, I feel like I heard two different answers to this same question. If they refinance, they get a pot of money to use, like that pot of money is
What's
theirs.
left, because every month for that first year, they're pulling $416 out of it. And so let's say a year later, they pulled out $5,000, and so there's still $2,500 left. Yes.
So essentially, they
Makes
could
sense.
maybe use that towards a refi cost.
Correct.
It's kind of helping with that too, potentially.
Yes.
When we said use it or lose it, that's if you sell. Because like earlier I had asked, use it or lose it, like, if you still have money in the bucket, you
It's
can use
theirs.
it. Okay.
But if you were to pay for a buy down, like for the full term of the loan, and then rates went down, maybe that's more like,
Well,
Then
one,
you've wasted money.
it's gone, after 2 years, it's gone.
Yeah.
right?
It's been used up. And then rates drop. Sucks for you because it's gone.
Brian, we got more questions. Can we go into your office?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you for being so accessible. Thank you, everybody. That was awesome. Great insights and great questions. We want to move on to the adjustable rate.
So, so I mentioned Barry Habibi's got a 4-minute video, which we don't have time for. But he's talking about the market and what's going on, and it seems like maybe recession and maybe the market, economy maybe going south a little bit. He's thinking rates are gonna drop sooner than just, I mean, literally a month ago, it's, by the end of next year, maybe we'll be in a position to refinance. Well, now in this video, it sounds like it's even sooner than that, maybe even this summer, so we might be towards the top of the rate, is what he's saying. And again, I subscribe to 2 different interest rate services, and they're kind of today versus tomorrow should lock or float. But he's a national guy, and I joke, rather right half the time. But, now he's moving that up, thinking we're getting close to the top of the rates. And then they're going to flatten out and maybe drop again where we can look at refinancing, all right? So on an ARM, I know the conversation came up a couple weeks ago regarding ARMs. And the bond market, and this would be part of that video, but the bond market is still upside down. The 5, the 7, the 30-year bonds, or the 30-year, or 5, 7, and 10-year ARMs, meaning fixed for 5 years, then it flips over to the 30-year fixed. 7 years, adjustable, fixed for 7 or fixed for 10, and then it goes to adjustable. Those rates are not that far off than a regular 30-year fixed rate. For Fannie, Freddie, conforming loans, you can do a conforming ARM loan, and it's not that far off of a regular old 30-year. Now there are some, you might find a credit union, hey, we're at 5.5 on a 5-year ARM, and it's temporary, I'm gonna say temporary money. They've got it, oh, we can offer this for a month and then it's gone. So there might be hit and miss, but in general, there isn't a big difference still today. Back in the day, when I was started in this industry, it was a 1% lower. And hey, if I'm gonna get transferred to New York in 2 years, yes, let's do that, because it will never adjust on you. Let's take advantage of the rate. That isn't the case right now. It might be at some point here in the future, but it really isn't right now.
And I'm finding public perception of 20 years ago, or the 2006-8 housing crash, there were so many people that had ARMs, and then they came due and the payments were crazy, and then they were upside down and couldn't do anything. So I'm finding in my conversations with clients that they still see ARMs as dangerous territory. So keep that in mind, your job as an educator. Right now, it's not even it's a moot point because it's the same rate, but we're always fighting consumer perception, right or wrong.
Right, and in theory, if, say what experts say, and come 8 months from now, it might be a period where we can look at refinancing out of 7 down to 4 or 5. Well, then the ARM doesn't necessarily, didn't do as much.
Awesome, so that sounds like it's something that, you know, we'll keep in mind moving forward. It's maybe not as applicable right now, but we're still paying an arm and a leg. And on to the last leg. Is assumable.
So assumable mortgages are illegal. I'm just kidding, because I'm not involved with it. But I'm familiar with them, and Krista would be all over this because she's, you know, somebody's sitting with a FHA loan, and it's sitting at 3% right now. Well, and now their option is 7% if they just got their own loan. Well, an FHA loan used to be, if I filed bankruptcy, I could go assume an FHA loan tomorrow. That's no longer the case. They have to qualify for that new loan. But if they're already getting an FHA loan, or maybe even a conventional loan, then hey, you could market as a seller, hey, we've got a 200 grand mortgage sitting at 3%. Buy our house, and you can assume this mortgage. That's a huge deal for your seller. Now, that's just FHA and VA. Conventional loans are not assumable.
And it's all VA and FHA, right? I've yet to see one that's not assumable. And I just listed one like a month and a half ago, and I marketed the crap out of that because it was a VA loan. It was assumable at 2.875 or whatever interest. Couldn't believe a VA buyer did not buy it. But that's what we should be doing, is calling our sphere of the last 5 years that have FHA or VA loans and explain to them, hey, rates are 7.5% right now, but with your 3%, it's going to be so much easier to sell that home if someone knows, look at the difference of what 3% versus 7% is in your payment. It's nuts. So that's what we need to be doing. In a time where we're supposed to be lead generating anyway and doubling down on our calls, those should be your first calls, in my opinion.
Would it be a good social media post?
The kicker there is now they bought it for, they've got a 200 grand mortgage, and now they want 300 for the house. All right, that buyer, yes, I want that 200 grand mortgage at 3%, but they have to come up with 100 grand to match that mortgage to meet your new 300 grand purchase price. All right, so that, I'm gonna say that's the trick, because, you know, and maybe if, you know, depending on what happens with values, that might get closer. And so, you know, even somebody 2 years ago bought it for 300, some point here it was worth 380. But maybe now it's down to 350, and now it's they can bridge that gap.
Do they have to just bring that money to the table, or it can be another loan, or how does
They
that
need
work?
to bring the money to the table.
Oh, they do, okay.
Oh, how do you deal with the rebuttal from what you're talking about now? And they go, yeah, okay, that's great for the person who assumes my loan, but what about me going to buy a home at a higher rate? How would you deal with that?
Rarely do you win on both sides anyway, right? I mean, do they want to get the most amount of money possible and attract great buyers? Or you just can't have it both ways. Because I say it all the time, unfortunately, you're buying in the same market that you're selling in. And it works better for downsizing buyers, because of course you're reaping the benefit on the sale more than the cost on the buy side. But I mean, every case is different. But yeah, they say it all the time. I don't have a better script than that. Colin, do you have one?
Well, some of it just comes down to motivation.
Yeah.
I mean, if they need to do it, but they're holding back because they're concerned about the market to sell their home, well, there's an opportunity, as Scotty alluded to, there's an opportunity for us to provide an option as to how we could better market their home and maybe sell it quicker, or perhaps get them a little bit more money than they would have otherwise gotten in order to help them get to the next step.
Maybe they need to stay in a move to a Rambler.
Maybe.
Because they
Knee
can't,
surgery or something.
because they can't walk upstairs.
Always go back to motivation.
The second part of that too is rates are gonna change again. And so you're taking advantage of it. You can always get a lower rate, but you can't take advantage of the market you've got for your house now. Your house, and I think Colin mentioned this in the call, your house right now is worth more than it's going to be. It is at the maximum of its value right now. So you're reaping the benefit of getting the maximum value for your house, and then betting on the fact that sometime in the future, the rate will be lower, and you can take advantage of that rate too, and then you win on both sides. Would
Take
you agree?
advantage of not being against 30 other offers too. I mean, it's just really what is your motivation? You can't convince people, but give them their options, you know? It's nice.
The fact that we're
you can
seeing
write an offer and have a
inspections and
chance.
getting closing costs, I mean, that's my script to my buyers. So many of them just, you know, we write 5, 6, 7, I've heard people say 15, 20 offers, which means 20 approval letters that you've written. It's a more normalized market, and take advantage of that because you can refi. And it's, people are always like, oh, it's so expensive to refi. Not really. I mean, and you can run the rate of return to figure out if you stay here another, 2 years, you will make up that difference if you build in your refi costs. You guys are gonna be super busy next year.
So they all true. For all of us.
Awesome, well, this is great. Yeah, let's give them a round of applause. Thank you so much. Well, as this new market is becoming what it is, it makes sense that there might be 3, 4 agents that come to their table for the listing appointment, right? So it just makes sense. It may not apply to them, but if you know this inside and out, if you know the Keller Mortgage opportunities too, we've got to give them a shout out for their special programs. But if you know this, it sets you apart. It gives you that advantage. So let's take advantage of that. And speaking of taking advantage, you all wait here. I'm gonna go make sure the pizza tastes good, and I'll let you know. No, but thank you all so much for being here. Any questions, please feel free to reach out to Brian or any of the agents here that spoke up about specific issues, and look forward to seeing you tomorrow at Bold.
Can I just add, for those of you that can't or don't want to eat pizza, I have 6 small individual salads, so grab one of those if that's a preference.
Jamie, can you also just confirm Old First Step is at the location that we're
All at
going
the.
to? Okay,
Savage.
not going to Minneapolis
Nope,
tomorrow.
it's all at 7.
Olivia.
And then just also a reminder, Wealth Building Club at 12:30.
Ooh, well, thanks. It's called Building Club.
Go away.
I go until we have.